What's up, everyone? In this video, we're going to be talking about what exactly an IDE is in regards to programming. Specifically, what does it consist of? Why do developers use it? And is it required for development? So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, let's quickly talk about what an IDE exactly is. An IDE is short for Integrated Development Environment. What it simply does is simply software that makes building applications a lot easier. It makes developers' lives a lot easier by providing all of the common tools that we use while developing code into a single interface. So we don't have to reach, in 50 different directions, grabbing different tools that we would need while, developing some software. There are many different IDEs available, such as Atom, Eclipse, NetBeans, Android Studio, Xcode, IntelliJ, just to name a few, but there are plenty more IDEs out there, and they each serve a different case for a different framework/language. Okay, now that we've spoken about IDEs at a high level, let's go down a little bit deeper. So an IDE will usually consist of three big components at the ground level when you're thinking about it. Alright, so the first tool that we're going to talk about in IDEs would be the code editor, of course. This is where all of the magic is going to happen. So this is where you're coding, this is where all of your business logic is going to be. This is your bread and butter. So the first feature of the code editor is syntax highlighting. So syntax highlighting is simply visual cues around important words or keywords depending on your language. So you can see here we're using the Golang editor and our language is Go. So you can see Go has a few keywords just in this simple hello world file that are highlighted purple just to give me some visual cues like, hey, we're inside a package and it's named main, we're importing a few things, and now we have a function. So imagine if I put this into a comment with no visual cues. See how hard it would be to decipher where things would be if you're not familiar with the language. It'll kind of make you a little bit less efficient. So that's basically what syntax highlighting is in a nutshell. You can always go a little bit deeper and read a little bit more about it, but that's just at a high level. Another cool thing about the code editor that's a part of your IDE is if you actually hover over some of the keywords, it'll actually give you some information about what that keyword means and how it's used in the language, and even a link in some cases. So you can see here we're in the Golang editor and I hovered over the package keyword. I get an entire paragraph about what the package is used for and how it works in Go, and even a link to the documentation from the Go site. So that's something that you can really use. That'll be really useful when you're learning the language on the fly, or if you just want some quick information while you're coding. Alright, the next feature of the code editor in the IDE is autocompletion. This is a huge time saver for me personally. So let's go ahead and talk about what it is. So it's simply the IDE trying to figure out what you're typing as you're typing it. So for example, if I go under this print line statement and I try to type in the F&T package, which is the format package, and you can see I get a list of different autocompletion ideas that my IDE is saying, hey, is this what you're trying to do? Which one of these things are you trying to do? It gives me an entire list of things that I could do with the autocomplete. So if I just click on it, it autocompletes it for me, saves me the time of typing it, and even trying to remember every function that's a part of a given package or a given import that we're doing. The last thing I want to go over about the code editor in the IDE is bug catching. So as you're typing, let's say you make a typo, the IDE will automatically pick it up as you're typing and say, hey, is this what you meant? You sure? Because this is not, it's not ideal for the language or the syntax that you're using. So for example, let's say I make this print line lowercase. You can see it highlights it red saying, hey, this is not a function, it's incorrect. So that's something else that's very super helpful as you're coding. It helps reduce human error and it helps keep your code pretty clean for the most part. Alright, the second tool that an IDE typically would consist of alongside the code editor would be some type of build automation for your code so that you can build, compile, and run your code. So in this instance, you can see that I have a play button up here and also a play button right here that will literally build, compile my Go code and run it and print the output in the terminal right here. So if I can click the play button up top, for example, it's going to run the go build command for this specific file. And you can see here, it ran the code successfully and hello world was printed into the the terminal. So that's something that is very, very helpful while you're coding. You want to be able to run your code, you want to be able to build and compile it easily as you're developing. Alright, one of the last tools that I wanted to talk about in regards to your IDE would be the debugger. Debugger is going to be a lifesaver when you start developing complex code, complex programs, and you're trying to figure out what's going wrong in your app. So for example, you can see here we still have our hello world program, but I modified it a little bit with a new variable that's simply a string kodingwithkam, and I added on to the print line statement hello world kodingwithkam. So in most IDEs, you will be able to actually place a breakpoint right here, and this is a simple stop when you run your debugger to say, hey, I want to stop at this line and see what's going on or what the values are looking like right here. So to start debugging, typically you will have a bug button in your IDE, like I do right beside my play button, and if you click it, it'll begin the process of running the debugger, and you will actually be able to see what's going on in your program in the terminal right here. So you can see it stopped right here, and you can see it evaluated my expression, and if I click resume program, it'll continue and finish what it was supposed to do. So this is something that is really helpful as you're developing. Depending on your IDE, the layout may be a little bit different, but it's simply the same for every IDE if they have a debugger. Now, let's talk about why developers use IDEs. Well, as you can see from the previous examples, they allow us to hit the ground running when we're building a new application. Instead of us having to reach around everywhere trying to pull in all the tools we'll need, we literally can start from one spot and they'll be able to hit the ground running. Another reason why developers use IDEs, as you can see before, they give us plenty of ways to save time and be more efficient by automating certain tasks, giving us syntax highlighting, and AutoComplete as we're coding. So all of these allow us to become more efficient in our processes when we're trying to push code out and be more efficient for our team. Lastly, IDEs can also help you onboard new team members. So let's say you're a new developer on a new development team and they're all using the same IDE. For example, in our example, we would say everybody's using Golang. So if everybody's using Golang, you can easily onboard a new developer by saying, hey, we're using this IDE. You can see how everything is run. It's easy to communicate between each other because, if you run into an error, everybody knows how that IDE works. So it kind of gives some uniformity between teams when onboarding, new team members. Is an IDE required for developers? Not at all. If you want to go down the route and, have more customization, more freedom to spread your wings, you can definitely bring in the different tools that you need and manually configure everything to your liking, to your specs. That'll help you develop in your, in your way to be efficient. So yeah, definitely an IDE is not required by any means necessary. Choosing the right IDE for your application typically comes down to preference and is it the right tool for the job, of course. So depending on what you're trying to achieve, what language you're using, and what the goal is for your application, that typically has some weight on what IDE you choose. But at the end of the day, it's preference, and if it is able to get the job done, it can get the job done. Let me know in the comment section if you have an IDE of choice, if you have any questions, and I'll try my best to respond to everything you guys ask. Thank you guys again for tuning in. More videos coming soon, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.